Have you ever met someone who felt like home, yet the universe seemed determined to keep you apart? Someone whose presence awakened parts of your soul you didn't even know existed, only to discover that being together was impossible. Perhaps they were already committed, lived across the world, or circumstances simply conspired against you. If you've experienced this profound ache, this inexplicable connection to someone you cannot possess, then what I'm about to share may transform how you understand these encounters forever. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman I encountered through my research into Jungian psychology. She met David at a conference, a brief 3-day encounter that changed everything. Their connection was immediate, electric, undeniable. They talked until dawn, shared dreams they'd never voiced aloud, and felt as if they'd known each other across lifetimes. Yet David lived on another continent, was building a life with someone else, and their paths would never cross again. For months afterward, Sarah was haunted not just by loss, but by a question that tormented her. Why? Why would the universe create such a profound connection only to make it impossible? If this resonates with your own experience, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because what we're about to explore together goes far deeper than romance. It touches the very essence of why souls encounter each other in this mysterious dance of connection and separation. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who mapped the territories of the unconscious mind, would have told Sarah something radical. This encounter was not a cosmic mistake. It was not the universe's cruelty. It was, in fact, one of the most profound gifts her soul could receive, a catalyst designed not for romantic fulfillment, but for her own psychological and spiritual evolution. Today, we venture beyond the veil of ordinary understanding to explore why the universe sends you someone you cannot be with. This isn't merely about unrequited love or missed opportunities. This is about the architecture of awakening itself and how the deepest connections sometimes serve purposes far more mysterious and transformative than we could ever imagine. The awakening catalyst. In the vast library of human experience, Jung discovered that not all soul connections are meant to culminate in possession. Some arrive like lightning, brilliant, illuminating, and brief, specifically to awaken dormant aspects of ourselves that have been sleeping in the shadows of our consciousness. Think about it. Before this person entered your life, you were living within a certain framework of who you believed yourself to be. You had routines, comfort zones, a particular way of moving through the world. Then they appeared, and suddenly you found yourself capable of conversations you'd never had, dreams you'd never dared voice, depths of feeling you didn't know existed within you. This is no accident. According to Jung's understanding of the psyche, these individuals function as what we might call awakening catalysts. They disrupt our psychological equilibrium, not to harm us, but to activate parts of our authentic self that were lying dormant. Consider Sarah's story again. Before meeting David, she had accepted a life of quiet compromise, a career that paid the bills but didn't ignite her passion, relationships that were comfortable but not transformative. David's presence awakened her awareness of what deep intellectual and emotional connection could feel like. He triggered forgotten dreams of writing, of creating, of living with greater intensity and authenticity. The awakening was not about David himself. It was about what his presence revealed about her own unexplored potential. Jung understood that the psyche has its own intelligence, its own agenda for growth and integration. Sometimes it uses other people as keys to unlock rooms within ourselves that we've kept sealed. The person you cannot be with often arrives precisely when your soul is ready for expansion, but your conscious mind is still clinging to limitation. These encounters serve a function that transcends romantic categories entirely. They are initiation experiences, moments when the universe conspires to show you who you could become if you were brave enough to step into your fuller potential. But here's where it becomes both beautiful and painful. The very intensity of the connection often triggers not just awakening, but also the surfacing of old wounds, unresolved patterns, and aspects of ourselves we've been avoiding. The person becomes a mirror, reflecting back not only our light but also our shadows. And this reflection becomes essential for our psychological integration. The mirror of the unconscious, Jung's concept of projection, reveals one of the most profound purposes behind these impossible connections. When we meet someone who stirs our souls so deeply, we are rarely seeing them clearly. Instead, we are encountering aspects of our own unconscious, our unlived potential, our disowned qualities, our deepest longings, projected onto another person. This projection serves a crucial psychological function. It makes visible what was previously invisible within ourselves. The qualities that attract us so powerfully in this other person, their creativity, their depth, their way of seeing the world. These are often aspects of our own nature that we have not yet fully developed or acknowledged. Let me share another story that illustrates this principle. Michael, a successful but emotionally guarded businessman, met Elena at a retreat. She was an artist, spontaneous, emotionally expressive, deeply connected to her intuitive nature. Their connection was instant and profound, yet circumstances made any relationship impossible. She was committed to her spiritual path in a way that required solitude. He was bound by responsibilities in a completely different world. For months after their brief encounter, Michael was consumed by thoughts of Elena. But through Jungian analysis, he began to understand something remarkable. His fascination with Elena was actually his psyche's way of drawing his attention to his own undeveloped artistic and intuitive nature. She had become a mirror reflecting back his own creative potential, which he had buried beneath years of focusing solely on material success. This is the mirror effect Jung wrote about. These individuals reflect back our unconscious contents, both light and shadow. They show us not only what we long for, but what we need to heal and integrate within ourselves. The shadow aspect is equally important. Often the person who captivates us also triggers our deepest insecurities, our patterns of unworthiness, our fears of abandonment or rejection. This isn't coincidence. It's the psyche's way of bringing these unresolved aspects to consciousness so they can be healed. The pain we feel when we cannot be with this person is not really about losing them. It's about confronting the split within ourselves, the gap between who we are and who we are capable of becoming. It's about seeing, perhaps for the first time, both our incredible potential and the wounds that have kept us from fully embodying it. Jung called this process shadow work, the integration of repressed or denied aspects of ourselves. The person who stirs us so deeply often carries projections of both our golden shadow, our unlived potential, and our dark shadow, our unhealed wounds. The relationship, even when impossible, forces us to reclaim these projections and integrate them as part of our own wholeness. This is why these connections feel so significant, so fated. They are not random attractions. They are precisely orchestrated encounters designed to facilitate the most important relationship of all, the relationship with our own complete self. Synchronicity and soul contracts. Jung's concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that suggest an underlying order to existence, provides another lens through which to understand these encounters. The timing of meeting someone you cannot be with is never random. It occurs precisely when your soul is ready for a particular type of growth, even if your conscious mind feels unprepared for the intensity of the experience. In many wisdom traditions, there exists the concept of soul contracts, agreements made at a level beyond ordinary awareness, designed to facilitate mutual growth and awakening. While this may sound esoteric, Jung's psychological framework provides a remarkably similar understanding through his concept of the collective unconscious and archetypal encounters. Consider the precise timing of these meetings. They often occur during periods of transition, when you're questioning your life direction, recovering from loss, or standing at a crossroads of personal development. The universe, it seems, has an uncanny ability to send exactly the right catalyst at exactly the right moment to precipitate necessary change. Sarah's encounter with David happened just as she was beginning to question whether her life was aligned with her deeper values. Michael met Elena during a period when his material success felt increasingly hollow. In each case, the timing created maximum potential for awakening and maximum disruption of comfortable but limiting patterns. Jung understood that the psyche operates according to its own logic, its own timing. Sometimes it uses impossible love as the initiation tool, a way of breaking open our hearts and consciousness to prepare us for deeper self-understanding and more authentic living. The soul contract perspective suggests that some relationships are designed not for permanence, but for transformation. The other person agrees, at some level, to serve as a catalyst for your growth, just as you serve as a catalyst for theirs. The inability to be together is not a failure of the contract. It is often its precise fulfillment. This understanding transforms the narrative from one of loss and rejection to one of sacred service. This person entered your life not to stay, but to awaken you. They came not to complete you, but to reveal that you were already complete, just unconscious of your own wholeness. The synchronicity surrounding these encounters often extend far beyond the initial meeting. Signs, symbols, dreams, and meaningful coincidences continue to occur, guiding both individuals toward the growth that the connection was meant to facilitate. These are not cruel reminders of what cannot be. They are navigational aids for the journey of individuation that the encounter has initiated. Attachment versus love. One of the most profound teachings that emerges from these impossible connections lies in the distinction between attachment and love, a difference that becomes crystal clear only when possession is removed as an option. Attachment, as Jung and Eastern philosophical traditions understand it, is love contaminated by need, possession, and the ego's desire to control. When we are attached to someone, we love them not for who they are, but for how they make us feel, what they provide for us, how they validate or complete us. But when the universe sends you someone you cannot possess, it strips away the possibility of attachment and reveals whether true love exists beneath it. True love, Jung would argue, is the ability to appreciate another being's essence without needing to own, change, or control them. It is love that seeks the other's highest good, even when that good does not include us. It is love that can hold both connection and separation as sacred. In Sarah's case, her journey with the memory of David became a meditation on this very distinction. Initially, her pain was rooted in attachment, in wanting him, needing him, imagining how her life would be better with him in it. But as she worked through the psychological material the encounter had activated, she began to experience something deeper: genuine appreciation for who David was, gratitude for the awakening he had facilitated, and love that required nothing from him in return. This transformation from attachment to love is often one of the primary purposes of these encounters. They teach us that true love is not diminished by distance, impossibility, or separation. If anything, love is purified by these constraints, revealing its essential nature as an appreciation of being itself rather than a need for possession. The inability to be with someone we deeply connect with becomes a spiritual practice, an opportunity to love without agenda, to appreciate without grasping, to hold another in our heart without needing them in our life. Jung understood that this kind of love, paradoxically, brings us closer to our own wholeness. When we can love someone completely while releasing all claim to them, we discover that we were never actually incomplete. The love we thought we needed from them was always available within us. We simply needed the catalyst of their presence to access it. This is why these relationships often continue to feel alive and meaningful, even after physical separation. The love that was awakened transcends the limitations of ordinary relationship. It becomes a channel through which we access love itself, not as something we receive from another, but as something we embody and express. The alchemical transformation. Jung was deeply influenced by alchemical symbolism, understanding it as a psychological map for the transformation of consciousness. The encounter with someone you cannot be with often initiates what alchemists called the opus contra naturam, the work against nature, a process of psychological refinement that transforms emotional lead into spiritual gold. The initial stage of this alchemical process is what alchemists called negredo, the darkening, the breakdown of existing psychological structures. When you meet someone who awakens such deep longing, yet remains unavailable, you often experience a kind of psychological dissolution. Your previous understanding of yourself, your relationships, your life direction, all of this can feel as though it's dissolving. This dissolution, though painful, is necessary. It breaks down the false structures of identity that were limiting your growth and opens space for something more authentic to emerge. Michael's experience exemplifies this perfectly. His encounter with Elena initiated months of what felt like internal chaos. His previously clear sense of identity as a successful businessman became blurred. He found himself questioning everything: his career choices, his relationships, even his understanding of what constituted a meaningful life. But Jung would recognize this chaos as the necessary albedo, the whitening phase of alchemical transformation, where new clarity begins to emerge from the dissolution of old patterns. The longing you feel for this person becomes, in alchemical terms, the fire that drives the transformation. The intensity of your desire burns away what is superficial, non-essential, inauthentic. It forces you to confront fundamental questions. Who am I when I'm not trying to be what others expect? What do I actually want from life? What parts of myself have I been denying or suppressing? The pain of separation serves as the alchemical vessel, the container in which this transformation occurs. Without the containment provided by impossibility, the encounter might remain at the level of romantic fantasy or ordinary relationship dynamics. But the inability to possess the other person forces the energy inward, where it can do its transformative work. Sarah discovered this when she stopped trying to escape the pain of her connection to David and instead began to explore what the pain was teaching her. She found that her longing for him was actually longing for aspects of herself, her own depth, creativity, and capacity for profound connection that she had not been fully expressing in her life. The alchemical gold that emerges from this process is not the other person, but the integrated self, a version of you that has reclaimed projected aspects, healed old wounds, and awakened to previously dormant potentials. You become more whole not by gaining the other person, but by becoming more fully yourself. This is why, in the final stage of alchemical transformation, the rubedo or reddening, many people find that their attachment to the impossible relationship naturally transforms into something else: gratitude, wisdom, and a capacity for love that is both deeper and more free than anything they had experienced before. Preparation for authentic relationship. One of the most practical purposes served by these impossible connections is their role in preparing us for relationships that are truly aligned with our evolved consciousness. They serve as both mirror and teacher, showing us what we actually seek in deep connection and revealing the internal work necessary to attract and maintain such connection. When Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, he understood that authentic relationship requires two individuals who have done significant inner work. The encounter with someone you cannot be with often initiates and accelerates this inner work in ways that ordinary relationships might not. Consider what these experiences teach. They show us the difference between fantasy and reality, between projection and genuine seeing, between neediness and love. They force us to develop emotional resilience, to cultivate our own wholeness rather than seeking completion through another. Sarah's journey exemplifies this perfectly. Her work with the psychological material activated by her encounter with David led her to develop aspects of herself she had never cultivated. She began writing again, started painting, engaged more deeply with her spiritual practice. Most importantly, she learned to source her sense of worth and creativity from within rather than seeking validation from others. When she eventually met someone with whom a relationship was actually possible, she brought to that connection a level of self-awareness, emotional maturity, and capacity for authentic love that her previous self could never have offered. The impossible relationship had prepared her not by showing her what she couldn't have, but by developing within her the qualities necessary for the kind of deep connection she truly desired. This preparation often happens in subtle ways. The encounter teaches us to recognize authentic connection when we see it. It develops our capacity to hold depth and complexity in relationship. It shows us our patterns, our projections, our areas of needed growth. Michael's story follows a similar arc. His work with the Elena encounter led him to integrate his artistic nature with his professional life, to develop emotional intelligence, and to become more authentic in all his relationships. When he eventually found partnership, it was with someone who could meet both his practical and creative natures, a depth of compatibility that would not have been possible for his inner development. The person you cannot be with often serves as a template, showing you the qualities and depth you seek in relationship while simultaneously developing within you the capacity to both recognize and offer such qualities. Jung understood that like attracts like in the realm of consciousness. To attract someone capable of deep, authentic connection, we must first develop that capacity within ourselves. The impossible relationship often serves as the initiation into this development. The sacred purpose. Inner evolution. At the deepest level, Jung's understanding reveals that these encounters serve a purpose far more significant than romantic fulfillment. They are assignments from the soul itself, designed not to give us what we think we want to, but to facilitate what we most need, the evolution of consciousness itself. The ultimate purpose of meeting someone you cannot be with is not to torture you or to demonstrate cosmic unfairness. It is to initiate a process of individuation, the psychological and spiritual journey toward becoming your most authentic, integrated self. Jung believed that the psyche has its own intelligence, its own developmental agenda. Sometimes it uses romantic catalysts to activate growth that might not occur through ordinary circumstances. The person who stirs your soul so deeply is often carrying medicine that your psyche recognizes as necessary for your evolution. Think about the qualities that drew you to this person so powerfully: their creativity, their depth, their way of being in the world. These qualities caught your attention because they represent aspects of your own potential that are ready to be developed. The encounter serves as both inspiration and initiation into cultivating these qualities within yourself. But the evolution goes deeper than personal development. These encounters often activate what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to bridge opposites and integrate paradox. The experience of loving someone you cannot possess forces you to hold seemingly contradictory truths: connection and separation, fulfillment and longing, presence and absence. This capacity to hold paradox without resolution is one of the hallmarks of psychological maturity and spiritual development. It expands your capacity to navigate life's complexities with greater wisdom and equanimity. From Jung's perspective, these souls enter our lives as teachers, mirrors, and catalysts. They agree at some level beyond ordinary awareness to serve our growth even at the cost of their own comfort or our mutual satisfaction. The relationship itself becomes a sacred vessel for transformation. The ending of these connections is not failure. It is often the completion of their purpose. Just as a teacher releases a student when the lesson is learned, these souls often withdraw when their catalytic function has been fulfilled. The love that was awakened continues, but it has been transformed into something that transcends the need for personal possession. This understanding transforms the entire narrative. Instead of asking, "Why can't I be with them?" we begin to ask, "What is this experience teaching me? How is it serving my growth? What aspects of myself is it revealing and developing?" The doorway that initially seemed to lead toward another person actually opens inward, toward depths of your own being that you might never have explored otherwise. Living the wisdom. So how do we live with this understanding? How do we honor these profound connections while allowing them to serve their transformative purpose? First, we release the need to understand everything immediately. Jung taught that some experiences must be lived through rather than analyzed away. Allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of emotions these encounters bring: the joy, the longing, the confusion, the awakening. Each feeling carries information about your own psychological landscape. Second, we practice what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. You can simultaneously love someone deeply and accept that being with them is not your path. You can feel profound connection and also embrace separation. This paradox, when held with awareness, becomes a source of psychological strength and spiritual wisdom. Third, we turn toward the inner work that these encounters inevitably activate. Instead of focusing on what you cannot have, focus on what you're being invited to become. What aspects of yourself is this person's presence illuminating? What qualities that attracted you to them are seeking development within you? Finally, we practice gratitude for the encounter itself, regardless of its outcome. These meetings are rare gifts, opportunities for profound awakening that many people never experience. The fact that such depth of connection exists, even briefly, reveals something beautiful about the nature of human consciousness and its capacity for recognition and love. Remember Sarah and Michael? Both eventually came to see their impossible connections not as cosmic mistakes, but as among the most meaningful experiences of their lives. Not because they got what they initially wanted, but because they became who they were meant to be through the transformation these encounters facilitated. Integration and gratitude. As we conclude this exploration into the mystery of impossible love, let us remember that Carl Jung's greatest gift was helping us understand that nothing in the psychological realm happens by accident. Every encounter, every attraction, every longing serves the greater purpose of consciousness evolution. When the universe sends you someone you cannot be with, it is not withholding love from you. It is offering you an opportunity to discover love's true nature. It is not denying you completion. It is revealing that you are already complete, simply unconscious of your wholeness. These encounters teach us that love is not something we receive from another person, but something we embody and express. They show us that the qualities we seek in partnership are often qualities waiting to be developed within ourselves. They demonstrate that the deepest connections sometimes serve purposes far more profound than romantic fulfillment. The person who stirred your soul and then disappeared into impossibility was not your punishment, they were your teacher. They came not to stay, but to awaken you. They served not as your destination, but as your catalyst for the journey toward your own authentic self. And perhaps most beautifully, they showed you that love itself is not diminished by impossibility. If anything, it is purified, revealed in its essential nature as something that transcends possession, control, and even presence. The universe sends you someone you cannot be with to teach you that love is not about having, but about being. Not about completion, but about recognition. Not about forever, but about transformation. If this exploration has resonated with your own experience, if it has offered new perspective on encounters that perhaps once felt like cosmic cruelty, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We delve deep into the mysteries of consciousness, love, and human transformation. Territories where ancient wisdom meets the profound questions of contemporary life. The path continues beyond where words can follow, but the wisdom gained from these impossible loves remains, not as memory of what could not be, but as testament to what has already become, a more awakened, integrated, and authentically loving version of yourself. Until our paths cross again in the exploration of consciousness and its mysteries, remember, some encounters are not meant to be possessed, but to possess us in the deepest sense, to transform us completely into who we were always meant to become.